Hello everyone, welcome to Discovering Digital Humanities with the Oklahoma State University Library. My name is Claire Patton, and today I'm here with Dr. Sara Loss, and we're going to be talking about her podcasting project. How are you, Dr. Loss?
I'm good. How are you, Claire?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Yeah. All right, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcasting project?
Well, it's a class project and it's in English 4003, which is the history of the English language. And it's kind of a unique class because we recently started a minor in linguistics. We have a lot of people who are interested in the class because they've read earlier versions of English in a literature class, or they want to major in minor in linguistics, or they're interested in teaching English to speakers of other languages. And so we get a wide range of people with different backgrounds and different goals. And I thought one way to kind of make it easier on people being able to choose what they want to do and talk about this in a unique way is to do a podcast instead of a final paper. So they had projects, they picked a topic, and they worked in small groups on doing a podcast type of report over the entire semester. I think another thing that was important for me in the project was we had just started the minor, and I wanted students who were going to continue in the minor to have some tools that a linguist has.
Yeah.
Linguists go out in the field and we record people, and I wanted them to get good at that. So they had to use a nice microphone, and they had to use audio editing software. And I was fine if that was Audacity or another open source product that linguists use called Prot.
Okay.
And Audacity was used to finish it because it's easier to overlay a couple different sound files on
Yeah.
each other in Audacity, but both of those were fine. They got to use different types of recorders. We have some recorders in the lab that
Yeah.
function differently than in the Creative Commons in the library function. I
Yeah.
got to find out where to go on campus to record people without a lot of HVAC noise.
Yeah.
So just a few tools.
So can you define what the field of linguistics is?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
It's the scientific study of human language. Like linguistics is one foot in the humanities and another foot in the social sciences. Sometimes we collaborate with computer scientists, sometimes we collaborate with people in foreign languages, sometimes in speech pathology. And so I think we don't always know where to place ourselves. And so I don't always think of myself as someone in the humanities. I just think of myself as someone who studies language that comes out of humans.
So when your students came into your class and you said to them, okay, we're going to be doing a podcasting project, did some of them go, oh no, this isn't what I signed up for? And how did you, if that happened, how did you calm them down and get them ready to work with all these tools?
That's a great question. I made the groups that I worked in, which is good and bad, but I did it off of a questionnaire. So I'd ask people if they had any experience with Audacity or any experience using different types of microphones or any experience doing creative writing. And so I tried to make groups where at least one person felt like she or he had a tool that they could bring to the group. I
Yeah.
also made it possible so not everyone had to talk
Yeah.
doing it. So some people were much more heavy on the editing and the pre-production side, and more people were in the middle of the production
Yeah.
side.
Yeah. So in your class, how did the study of linguistics tie into podcasting? Because it sounds like that's a really unique opportunity that might work even better than a final paper.
Yeah, so one thing that I enjoy teaching with the history of the English language is looking at all the ways language can change. Language is always changing. As long as people are talking or signing, there's going to be variation, and that variation will lead to change. And English has changed its word order. It's changed how it marks nouns. Like we used to have all our nouns have gender, like in Spanish or French. And so if you said computer, you'd have to say the gender of that noun. Our sound system has changed. What words mean has changed. So we have all this change going on. And I think especially with sounds, it's really nice to do a podcast where you can say, this is how an English speaker in the 1400s would have said this word. And here are some changes, and this is the order we think they happened in.
Yeah.
So it was a nice medium.
Yeah. Did your students enjoy this project?
I think they mostly enjoyed it. I think the biggest thing they learned is that this is not like a paper where you can put it off till the very end. Um, we talked a lot about, we made the requirements together as a class where we looked at what we wanted the podcasts to include. We started on scripts, we talked about storytelling and background noises. And it took, as you're aware of editing these interviews, it took so much work. You had to edit, you had to add things, you had to redo things. And it was tough. I think a lot of kids, a lot of students, a lot of adults, a lot of students use the podcast experience in their interviews for their next jobs, talking about how
Oh,
they
really?
handled a really big project and brought it to completion.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what got you interested in digital humanities and the field of linguistics?
Yeah, I think linguistics is kind of neat because linguists love tools. We love all the tools you can give us. And when I first started my master's program, I think I was intimidated by all the tools. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to download a new font onto my computer when I started, and I needed a different font to show all the sound symbols in a language that we were studying. And so I learned that, and it seemed like every semester I was learning a couple of tools, and I got better and better at it. Um, we love making things easier. We love looking at sounds. We love
Yeah.
keeping large databases. I know someone who makes a map of where different varieties of a language are spoken.
Yeah. That does sound a lot like digital humanities, and we
Yeah.
love using tools and we love making things easier. So, what are some tools that you use?
I use Prot a lot.
Okay.
It's a it's open source and you can record and you can zoom in really small and see where the not just the sound waves are, but the actual sounds themselves. So when you say like a p sound, you'll see silence and then a burst of air. Or you'll get different markings if you have like an E vowel versus an ah vowel, and you can kind of navigate your way through that.
Where did you learn the skills that you use in your job?
That's a really good question because you get a lot of schools as you go through grad school, but I learn about things I need to know more about when I go to conferences or when I talk to other linguists. And then I sit down and I learn the tool. I read the user manual that they have online. I sometimes check out books about it from the
Yeah.
library. I sit with it for a long time and I just play around with it. And that's how I learn.
Yeah. How do you handle any technical difficulties that you run into? Do you have someone that you go to? Do you call like the tech support line?
Yeah, I think the first thing I do is I step away from my computer. And I go for a walk or just something like that, where I let
Yeah.
my brain think about what my error could have been or what piece of it I'm missing. A lot of times I make a small error on the back end. So it's
Yeah.
really easy for me to transpose things in
Yeah.
code. And of course, if one thing's transposed in like an R code, you're done.
Yeah.
And so I have other strategies for really carefully proofreading. I talk to other linguists who I know use the tools. My spouse uses a lot of tools. He teaches ecology and
Yeah.
natural resources, ecology and management. And now that I am running the language studies lab, like I'm more of a go-to person for that stuff. And so one way I'm getting out of doing that is by leading a reading group on a tool so that we can all work through it together and maybe have a base of us who have a skill set to bother each other with questions about.
Yeah. But I think you're a testament to like how accessible these tools are. A lot of people that I've interviewed before have said that it's really intimidating to think about DH because of all these digital tools. That's not what comes naturally to them. But you're not a computer scientist. You're a linguist, but you still use these tools really well, and you're not afraid to mess up. You go and you take a walk and you think about it, and I think, really encouraging for people because it shows that you don't have to be an expert. And even if you make a mistake, it's okay.
And no one knows about your mistakes.
Mhm.
You just don't have to tell anyone that you messed it up and you sat with it for 3 days. You can
Yeah,
just never tell anyone.
exactly. So, what would you say to someone who's maybe intimidated about the thought of doing these digital humanities projects?
I think there's so many different types of advice I think I would give, and one is to take your time,
Yeah,
to give yourself grace.
yeah,
And another one I think is to find a friend who's interested in the same type of thing so you can bounce ideas off each other and troubleshoot that way. I know the library has a lot of resources and
yeah,
folks who can help. And
yeah,
so that's an avenue. I think you can go to different labs on campus, like the psychology lab will know about all the psychology tools, and art history will know about the tools that art history uses, and the linguistics program knows about the linguistic tools that people use. So that's another good resource.
yeah. So, why do you think, and you may have a different approach to this since you are a linguist and not like an art historian or an English professor, how do these tools, why are they important? What do they bring to your study versus more traditional methods that didn't use computers?
To bring it back to the podcast thing, I think it's nice to listen to language and to hear it in its different forms and to hear what the word order would have been in an earlier sentence. I, in my own research life, study when people use pronouns in unexpected ways. And so I will listen or I'll search a corpus for them and then I'll go and find them and grab that sound so that I can play it for other people and say, this wasn't an error. They meant to use it this way. Let's figure out what's happening and what the patterns are.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
do the other people in their community use it? Do only women in their community use it? Can they only use it with some types of verbs? Things like that.
yeah. That's super fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you have any future projects that you plan on working on?
Yeah, I am looking forward to keeping the podcast component in history of the English language for sure. I have a colleague who up at a different university who's used it for her social linguistics class. So I've thought about that, but I think we'll for
Yeah,
sure use it in history of English language.
yeah. Well, do you have anything else that you would like to add before we finish today?
No, I think you're right. Like it's intimidating, but you just sit down and make mistakes and you'll learn it. And there's a lot of free resources online, a lot of YouTube videos to
Yeah,
watch.
awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Claire.
Yeah.